Cast your minds back to 1982, a year when men were men and fashion experienced its glory days. Well, this was also the decade which caused Atari to go from this to this. Thanks, Mom. So, why did Atari stop making consoles and start making shit-tier gifts? The answer is of course obvious if you believe the internet, and of course who wouldn't. The story goes that in the 1980s Atari along with the entire Western gaming industry imploded, which was entirely this little shit's fault. Well, this is not the whole story, so let's start at the beginning. The 1980s were the boom years for the tech industry as a wealth of new gadgets were created and technology started to invade the home and become commonplace.
Macintosh from Apple.
These were the years when so many of the gadgets we know and use today were first being created, and it just so happened that the 1980s were the golden years for the arcades. And why is this relevant? Well, a Time article written in 1981 stated that over 20,000 quarters were being spent in the arcades across the states alone. Big business saw this and wanted a piece of the action. So what they decided to do was create consoles. Now, gaming consoles were nothing new, they'd been around since the 70s, but most of these were dedicated to one individual game that was built into the console, or the console was a mashup between a home computer and a gaming engine. And what happened during the early 80s is so many different companies decided to make their own consoles, and what resulted was a wave of poor quality substandard gaming engines followed by an absolute flood of pathetic games. Yes, even everybody's favourite oat-eating Quaker managed to cash in on the hype. But fear not, if breakfast cereal gaming isn't your thing, then the 80s had you covered. I'll just leave this here. But it wasn't just pixel porn and cereal themed games that were guilty of being utter dogshite. Even the big brands were at it, and who bigger than Pac-Man? The original Atari 2600 Pac-Man game was yet another example of how pathetic the industry was as a whole, as this game was met with dismay at how poor the Atari version was. Hopefully the picture is starting to become clear. These were the Wild West years of the gaming industry when big business and greedy individuals sought to cash in on the naivety of the scene as a whole. Basically, we got fucked. After years of poor quality games and a complete lack of any leadership or synergy in the industry, the bubble finally burst, notably a good year after the release of E.T. on the Atari 2600, which brings us back to the point at hand. E.T., the extraterrestrial on the Atari 2600, was not to blame for the great gaming crash of the early 1980s. Who was to blame? Well, everybody was. Although E.T. only took 6 weeks to program and was met with overwhelming disappointment at the time, it can hardly be blamed for the recession and eventual collapse of an entire industry. The true blame lies with the ease of accessibility of individuals and companies to make their own consoles and make their own games and get them out into the community, and what this caused was a complete saturation of substandard, poor quality games. Sounds familiar? It should. Because fast forward to 2017 and we have a very similar thing happening. It has become so easy for individuals to go online, get a cheap gaming engine, get some simple software, program a crappy game and get it on Steam Greenlight. In fact, almost half of the games on Steam Greenlight were actually made in 2016 alone. But there is some good news. Steam Greenlight is no more. Steam Greenlight is going to be replaced in spring by Steam Direct. Though the real question is, will Steam Direct solve the problems of Steam Greenlight? Well, probably not, but it will help tackle a big swathe of them. And if you do want to learn a little bit more about Steam Direct, you can click on this link here, and this will tell you everything we currently know about Steam Direct, and it will also provide a link in that video to the only press release which Steam have given out on the subject of Steam Direct to date. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and smash that button, because the next video we're going to be talking about Pokemon and its progression over the past 2 decades, or lack thereof. I'll see you next time.